distributive property method, and we are going to be using standard algorithm as well. Is that distributive property method. So that is a very, very important tool from last lesson that we are definitely going to be applying in this lesson. So it's good to keep up that practice and keep up just that good work on using the distributive property. So let's start. In this first question, we are going to find the unknown factors. So what essentially we are going to be given is we are going to be given a blank sentence, a blank distributive property sentence, and we want to fill in those blanks. So in finding these unknown factors, you can always pause this video to write this distributive property down, but we have the multiplication sentence 9 times 4 and 4/7, and we want to find out what is going to go into these blanks. Well, when we use the distributive property, we know that we're splitting apart the mixed number. I just dropped my marker. We're splitting apart the mixed number. So we have already done that. We've split the 4 and we put it in this bracket, and we split the 4/7 and we put it in this bracket. And what we want to do is we want to multiply that with our factor, the factor that is multiplying with the 4 and 4/7. So what number have we not used yet in this multiplication sentence that can be applied to both of these brackets? Yes, our 9. So all we have to do is put a 9 in both of these brackets, because I want you to always remember this multiplication sentence is basically saying we are going to have 9 groups or 9 units of that 4 and 4/7. So we have 9 groups of 4, and we also have 9 groups of 4/7. So let's try another one where we find the unknown factors. So now in this question, I have different parts of my bracket located and given to me. So we need to find the second part of this first bracket and the first part of the second bracket. Pause this video to write down the distributive property sentence of 10 times 6 and 3/4. If we want to write this in a sentence, we know that we are making 10 groups or 10 units of 6 and 3/4. So we have split our mixed number into 2 pieces, and we know that we want to multiply that with the factor of 10. Let's look at this first bracket. We already have that factor of 10 given to us, so we can check that part off. So we want to multiply it with one of the parts of our mixed number. Well, we can see that we have this part, the fraction, of our mixed number already given to us. So we need to multiply with the other part, the first part of our mixed number, which is 6. So we're going to fill this bracket in with 10 times 6. Now when we go to our next bracket, we already have our fraction given to us, which is 3/4. We know that we're multiplying that with 10 groups, so we need to fill that bracket in with a 10. Now you have shown that 10 is being not only multiplied by 6, but 10 is being multiplied by 3/4. 10 is not only being multiplied by 6, but the 10 is being multiplied by 3/4. So in this question, we are going to use the distributive property to solve. We're not finding the unknown factors. We are going to fill in everything and solve for the product. So our first job is to recognize our multiplication sentence and the difference between our whole number and our mixed number that we want to split. In this sentence, we have 7 times 3 and 2/7. So we want to first start by splitting up that mixed number. 7 times 3 and 2/7 can also be written as 7 times 3 plus 2/7. So now you recognize and you can see that I have split my mixed number of 3 and 2/7 into 2 pieces, into 2 parts. Once you are able to do that, you are able to make the 2 brackets of distributive property and solve for the product of both of those brackets. So we know that in both of these brackets, we are going to be multiplying with that first factor. What is our first factor, or how many groups are we going to want to make? Yes, we have the number 7, so I know I'm going to be wanting to make 7 groups of each part of our mixed number. So you're going to put a 7 into each bracket. Now we can see that we are going to multiply that number with the first part of our mixed number, so the other whole number in this distributive property. What will we be multiplying with 7? Yes, we'll be multiplying it with 3 because that's the first part of our mixed number. So I'm going to check that off. Now I know I'm going to want to multiply 7 with the second part of my mixed number. Good, which is 2/7. I can check that off. Once you have these together, you are able to solve for the answer. 7 times 3, do the math. Yep, you get 21, the product of 21. And 7 times 2/7, multiply those numerators, multiply those denominators. Good, you get 14/7. So I know it's so easy to just put these two numbers together, put your whole number and your fraction together and say, I am done, I'm gonna walk away from this, I have my answer, I'm ready to move on. But there's a next step that we have to take before we can get our final answer. What number do we have to change? Our 21 or our 14/7? Yes, we see a red flag with this 14/7 because we know that that's an improper fraction. We need to change that and add it to 21. Any number that has a numerator that's greater than our denominator tells us that we can make a whole number out of it. It looks sloppy if we would put the 21 and the 14/7 together. So let's change that. How many times can 7 go into 14? Good, it can go into it 2 times. So we multiply the product of 2 and 7 together, which gives us 14. Now we're subtracting 14 from 14, and do we have anything left over? No, which tells us that we have just created a whole number of 2. Once we have that whole number of 2, we're able to add that back on to our product of 7 times 3, which was 21. So we know that the answer, or the sum, is going to be 23, and that will be the product of 7 times 3 and 2/7. 7 times 3 and 2/7 gives us 23 wholes. The next question is 6 times 2 and 4/9. And again, we are continuing to use this distributive property for this because this is the best method to see how we are breaking down that mixed number. So let's go ahead and let's first separate our mixed number into 2 parts. 6 times 2 and 4/9 is going to be equal to 6 times 2 plus 4/9. This first part is super essential and super important because it lets you know that you are going to be eventually multiplying the 6 and the 2 and the 6 with the 4/9. So now you're able to just take this information and create those 2 brackets below. So let's go ahead and do it. 6 times 2 in the first and 6 times 4/9 in the second bracket. Now I want you to take a moment, pause this video, and solve for each product of the bracket, the 6 times 2 and the 6 times 4/9. Good. So once you have resumed this video, you have already solved for these 2 parts. We know that 6 times 2 gives us the product of 12, and we are adding that with the product of 6 times 4/9, which is 24/9. Are we finished? Can we put these 2 together and say we're finished? Not quite. Good. We have to make this number into a mixed number. The 24/9 needs to be changed to a mixed number. So let's begin. How many times can 9 go into 24? Yep, it can go into it 2 times. 9 times 2 gives you, good, 18. Subtract those 2 numbers and tell me what you receive. Yes, you receive 6. So you have the leftover of 6/9. 2 and 6/9. Now we're able to add those whole numbers together and attach it with the fraction that we were left over with. 12 plus 2, giving you 14, and 6 over 9. Showing us that 6 and 2 4/9, 6 times 2 4/9 gives you the product of 14 and 6/9. The last question I want us to go over is the multiplication sentence of 5 times 3 2/5. So I'm going to have you write this sentence down and then write what you are going to be multiplying it with when you separate your mixed number. We are multiplying the whole number of 5 times the separation of the mixed number. So go ahead, pause this video, and write it down. So now you have resumed the video and you have separated the 3 and 2/5, showing you that you are multiplying 5 times 3 and 5 times 2/5. And like I said before, this first part of our distributive property is showing us that we are going to be multiplying the whole numbers of 5 and 3 together, as well as the number of 5 and 2/5 together. So now we're able to use this information and separate it into 2 brackets, or parentheses, whatever you want to call it. So let's put our whole numbers together in the first bracket, 5 times 3, and our whole number of 5 with our fraction of 2/5 in the second bracket, 5 times 2/5. Now I want you to pause this video and solve for the product of each of these brackets, 5 times 3 and 5 times 2/5. Now that you have resumed, you know that 5 times 3 gives you 15, and 5 times 2/5 gives you 10/5. So, like the previous questions, we are not quite finished yet because we see we have an improper fraction here that we can change to a mixed number. So let's go ahead and do so. How many times can 5 go into 10? Yes, we know it can go into 10 2 times. 5 times 2 gives you the product of 10, so you subtract 10, leaving you with 0. So we don't have a fraction in this sentence. So all we have to do is add the whole number of 2 to our product of 15 here, giving you the sum of 17. This shows us that 5 times 3 2/5 is equal to 17. So practicing and using the distributive property is very important when you are multiplying a whole number with a mixed number, because we will get answers that are broken down into parts and pieces and brackets that we are able to logically solve for. It's easy to look at a question like this and say, well, 5 times 3 equals 15, so I'm just going to say it's 15 2/5, when that's not quite the case. We are multiplying the 5 times the 3 and the 5 times the 2/5, which ultimately gave us 17. So keep up that practice of distributive property today and tomorrow, and I look forward to our Zoom meetings about it. Bye-bye, 4th grade.